So today, what we'll cover is we'll go through what is a virtual assistant. We'll then cover how to use ChatGPT for your day-to-day as a virtual assistant. And we'll go through the usual basic tasks when you are a virtual assistant. So we'll cover email and calendar management, file creation and management. We'll cover how to create a standard operating procedure and what that is. We'll also cover client management, lead generation, customer support, social media management, invoice management, payroll management, and beyond the basics for each of that is we'll go through the best practices for each task. So I have a lot of things to cover with you guys. So I hope you guys have your notebook and notes ready as we go through. Since there's a smaller group this time, feel free to please ask questions. Let me know if there's something that you didn't understand or you guys want me to give more examples of. I would love to be that person for you. And at the very bottom, we have a ChatGPT. Using it, basically it'll give you different prompts that you can use on how you can use ChatGPT as your own superpower. Now, to start with, what is a virtual assistant? So going through this, it's basically a remote employee who provides general admin support to their clients. They're usually self-employed in their own country and is classified usually as a contractor in their business. So when you are a virtual assistant, you're essentially someone who is working. Contractor basically is another word for a freelancer. You might not be a full employee to your client business because, of course, since you're in a different country, they can't really fully take care of your taxes, social security, all of that good stuff. So you are in a lot of the different legal ways just a contractor or a freelancer in their business. However, there is another kind of assistant and one where we hire for here in Cebu is basically a second brain virtual assistant or an executive assistant. So this is kind of the next level. This is now the beyond basics of being a virtual assistant is learning how to be that second brain virtual assistant for your client. So what is that? So it is a virtual assistant who becomes the right-hand person in the client's business, who eventually thinks, writes, and makes decisions as the business owner to free them up in their business. So what this is you're essentially then that person that the client can trust to hey, I'm going to go off and go into a conference for a week. So I might not be responding. I might be not be working. So I'm leaving everything to you. You want to be that person because that's how you become indispensable. That's how you become a person who learns a lot of skills. As someone who works with a lot of virtual assistants, one of the biggest benefits that they get when they become that second brain is that they learn how to start their own business. They learn how to be able to run businesses as well because they're working very closely with the founder or the entrepreneur. So that's kind of my goal. That's kind of the beyond basics part of this workshop is getting you to the point where you are the second brain to your client. So why do employers hire virtual assistants? Why is this a position in the first place right off the bat? So they hire virtual assistants because they need to focus on what they do best. When entrepreneurs are doing things where it's not really their forte, it's not really their zone of genius, as some people call it, they're being dragged away from being able to grow their business. It also gives them access to more talent, so they're not just limited to who they can hire locally. And there's also, they're able to build and test systems. If they're running their business by themselves and they don't have a virtual assistant, it's going to be hard for them to see if their business actually works beyond them. It also offers them flexibility because they don't have to go to an office themselves. Everything is remote. They are able to talk with you almost at any time, depending on schedule, so on and so forth. It's also one of the fastest way to scale. For me as an entrepreneur, if I didn't have my amazing assistant, I wouldn't be able to grow my business in this way because I would be so bogged down in doing all of the other work that one isn't, again, my forte, isn't my focus, isn't my zone of genius. So it frees me up to be on sales calls, to look at the business in different ways, to create strategy, so on and so forth. And you get to the point where the things can happen without the employer there. So exactly what I was saying earlier, where then your employer can go onto business trips where they can find better clients, they can get better ideas on how to grow their business because they have a virtual assistant who can start growing their business even when they're not there. So what does a virtual assistant do? So this is going to be a brief overview since we'll be going through each one step by step. So first one is, of course, email and calendar management. There's file creation and management. There's creating standard operating procedures. There's client management, lead generation, customer support, social media management, invoice management, and payroll management. Now, seeing this list, I hope you guys don't feel like, oh my God, I have to do all of that as a virtual assistant, especially for our aspiring VAs. That is not the case. Usually when you start working with a client, you'll be working maybe on 1 or 2 or 3 of these. You might get to the point where you've learned and gone through all of these, but the goal is as you go into this line of work, let's say you're doing the lead generation part, as you grow that, then the client will hire someone as an actual salesperson to do that, to replace you in that until you go into the next process. Next is now on the virtual assistant basics. So when you are becoming a virtual assistant, you want to narrow down who are you working for. So this is essentially your niche or your niche, depending on how you want to say it. So you have to start with picking who you want to work with. That is essentially what it is that you have to figure out. You can't just go willy-nilly and like, I'm going to target everyone. If you say that you're serving everyone, you're not actually serving anyone at all. It's because when you say that, oh, I'm gonna work with everyone, but you're not really serving anyone because you're confusing yourself and confusing other people of who you actually want to help. So when it comes to picking your ideal client or your niche, you want to start with where are they based. So this is where what time zone are you comfortable with? Most of the time, if you're going to work with a US client, you're probably going to end up doing some night shift, maybe not all the way. If you're working with clients from New Zealand, Australia, it might be that you're doing very early morning shift. So you want to start just narrowing down, like generally, where are you comfortable working for? Like what time zone, what's the schedule that you want to set for yourself that makes it easy for you? Like if you have kids, or for some of you who have school, what is that ideal time zone for you? Next is, who do they serve? Who are the people that they work with? The reason why you want to make sure that you figure this out is then these are the people who you'll also end up working with. So for example, let's say you pick someone who is a business coach. So a lot of their clients are people who own businesses. Let's say you end up working with someone who has a e-commerce business. Let's say that they make women's clothing. So your client, you'll also be working with customers who are women who are buying themselves whatever it is that your client is selling. So you want to have that clarity of, it's not just who do you want to work with, who is the person that you're working with, because then it kind of has a connection. You're probably going to interact with those people later on. So having that clarity really helps. And what product or service do they sell? It really helps if you have some familiarity on their industry, on their own niche, on their own world. So it's easy for you to be able to have the service that you do. So as a really good example, let's say that you are an admin assistant and you love reading books. You love reading, fiction books. You love reading romance books. So a niche that you can go into is maybe romance author novels. Like for those who create a lot of really good romance books, you might want to target and work with them. If you are someone who you're a foodie, you love watching these TikTok videos or YouTube videos on how to cook, you might target people who are either food cooking influencers or are cooks, and they have their own business and they need a virtual assistant. So try to look at what it is they currently enjoy, because it helps for you to be able to focus on them. So next is, once you have a kind of a good picture of who you're working for, you want to have a good vision of what do you do? What are the things that you'll be offering to your target audience? So it goes down to, what is the skill that you're offering? What are you good at? Is it admin? Is it marketing? Is it sales? And finally, you want to go ahead and figure out, how can your clients find you? This is really important because you could have all of these, but they're not able to actually find you. So is it through social media? Is it through referrals? And then finally, on the pricing, honestly, when it comes to pricing, really depends on who your target. That's how you price yourself. Because like, for example, in 2XU, and also other virtual assistant agencies, as I see a lot of them, it really depends who it is or what size of the business we're targeting. I know a lot of virtual assistant agencies who work with people who are still solopreneurs, who are still very early on in their business. For 2XU, we work with a lot of mid-sized business. They've been doing it for a while, so they have the funding to be able to keep working with us. And I know virtual assistant agencies where they go with team version. Basically, you hire like 5 virtual assistants at a time just because they're now a corporation. They've built their business up to that point. So when it comes to pricing, yes, you can look at your expenses. Yes, you can look at how other people have been pricing themselves, but honestly, it goes down to the market that you're targeting, because that's who's paying you, that's who you want to work with. But also keeping in mind that the higher that you do price yourself, the bigger the responsibility, because they will be expecting a higher quality from you just because you are pricing yourself at that rate. And of course, creating your onboarding process. So there is a way that you can create your onboarding process using ChatGPT, which we can go through that later on. But when it comes to your onboarding process, there has to be a way that you're getting in your client, you're asking them the right questions, you're getting logins to their stuff. You should be the one who is leading them through the process rather than them like, okay, so what should we do now? You should get to that point. And there's a ton, and I do have a YouTube video as well on how to onboard a client. You guys can check out. But it is important that you are again the one leading your client through. So next is, since I've kind of been talking about ChatGPT here and there, what the heck is ChatGPT? So first, let's talk about what it's not. So ChatGPT isn't going to replace you unless you let it. And there's so much fear mongering, honestly, when it comes to ChatGPT and AI in general, that you're going to lose your job. You're not going to be useful anymore because AI will take over your job. But honestly, it's not going to replace you unless you do something about it. Like so many people have or live in this fear of like, hey, I'm not going to use ChatGPT. It's too big. It's too scary. You know, they're going to deep fake my face because I'm on it. Honestly, they can deep fake your face just because someone else took a picture of you. So that might not be the scariest thing, but it's not going to replace you unless you let it. Second is ChatGPT is not perfect and can make mistakes. So that's just kind of, but the good news is honestly, it'll just get better from here. Like that's why we have ChatGPT 4. That's why we have Bing. That's why we have Google's Bard, because it will just keep getting better. It's learning from us. That's why ChatGPT is out. It's actually out on beta. It's not even the final product yet because it's learning from our input, from what we put into it. ChatGPT is definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. You can't solve all of your problems there. It's not a magic tool that way. And it's not an infallible source of information. What that means is it's not really a source of truth. You have to double check, have to check for resources. And ChatGPT also doesn't give you resources, which is something that is frustrating. And it is not a substitute for ethical considerations. Again, it's a bot. It's not a human. It doesn't feel things. It's a program on a computer, at least for now. Later on, it might evolve into something different, but it is not a substitute for ethical consideration. So what it is ChatGPT is an AI-powered language model that can generate human-like text. So it's kind of like talking to a friend online. You ask questions, it comes gives you something back. You can rant to it. Some people use it as a therapist, but that's definitely gonna be up to you. But it can generate that human-like text. ChatGPT can provide ideas, suggestions, and recommendations on various topics, and can save time and effort in tasks such as research. You know, some people here are doing research, writing, and communication. It can also help generate content. If you've seen any of my content in the last 6 months, a lot of it, chances are I made it with ChatGPT. When it comes to sales and operations tasks. And of course, it is a valuable tool, can be a valuable tool as long as you know how to use it in a virtual assistant's toolkit, enhancing their abilities to support their clients. So a few dozen don'ts of ChatGPT: do use it as a resource and tool. Double, triple check. Like I said, it's not always right. Try to customize and rewrite the output of ChatGPT. Don't just assume that what it gives you is right and perfect. Double check it. Always give it information that will help. So ChatGPT works on context. So if you don't give it any context, it's going to give you very general answers. But if you give it the context and the information that it needs to give you the right answers, the more accurate it can be. Try to be as specific as possible of what is the outcome that you need. And I do have a prompt that you guys can use for that. Go ahead and try to experiment a few times with how your prompts are written. There's a way that you can edit the prompt even after you already submitted it. And make sure to keep it feedback. And I haven't seen a lot of people do this, and I really encourage that you tell ChatGPT, yep, that's right. Hey, can you rewrite this? Hey, this wasn't good enough. So then it can basically catch your preferences and learn what it is, what you prefer to see as an output. So a few don'ts is don't use ChatGPT to, don't offer sensitive information to ChatGPT because it does store it. So credit card information, first days, location, so on and so forth. As much as possible, don't offer sensitive information. Don't expect it to understand you. Again, give it context. Don't use it to create original content. Any AI can never create original content. You can use it to create your first draft of content, but it should still be that you are editing it and making it yours. Don't also just trust what it says when it comes to just gathering information. It's always going to be wrong. It's always going to do one way or the other. And make sure to don't give it harmful prompts. Don't teach it basically anything violent. Don't teach it anything traumatic, just because it's learning from us. Again, it's in beta. It's learning from how we're currently using it. So your guide to prompts. So the prompt is what you input and enter into ChatGPT. That's kind of like the ones that you've probably have seen. Actually, I do have, let me see where, yeah. A prompt basically is this right here. That's prompt, and this is an output of ChatGPT. So that's what it looks like. So if you've never seen ChatGPT before, this is basically what it looks like when you create a new account right off the bat. Super quick and easy to create an account, by the way. And these ones I call threads. So if you guys hear me say threads in a ChatGPT, this is what a thread is, because it's kind of like a chat back and forth thread for you and ChatGPT. So when you're using ChatGPT, use the WOW method. And if you've seen some of my videos, I talk about the WOW method a lot because it's just such a good way for you to introduce yourself to ChatGPT, to give it the right context for whatever it is that you need it for. So WOW method is, who are you? Who do you work for? Who is this for? And then the outcome that you need, asking it, are you ready? And then how do you want this done? Which is usually just a bonus if you want it to be really short or funny or intelligent sounding. So as an example, I run 2XU, a virtual assistant agency. So who am I and what do I do? My clients are service-based entrepreneurs like coaches, authors, and service providers. So who do I work for? For here, I used, because that's going to be our next topic, is how to do email and calendar management. I would like your assistance in email and calendar management. So I'm very clear about the output that I'm asking, or my own goal, and then asking it, are you ready? Again, the H, and sound witty with your answers. Sound short and witty with your answers. So you make this B short and witty with your answers. So that's the H, that's the how, is then how do you want ChatGPT to do it? Make sure again that you ask specifically what it is that you need. You know, if you're asking it for content, what platform is it for? If you're asking it for assets, do you have a template? If you're asking it to do research, what format? So first is email management. So on email management, the quick description of this is you're managing the email of your client to filter and respond to emails as needed. That's the shortest in what email management is. So imagine your own inbox. You probably have a ton of emails going in there. Some of them are mine. But basically, it's you filtering through them and making sure that they only see the things that they need to see, that they need to respond to, and you can respond to as many of these emails as you can, as you learn more about their business. So what that actually looks like as a process is you want to check how your client already processes their email. So then you have an idea of their own preferences. You can ask them through, hey, can you walk me through how you clean your email? Next is you can start creating a list of possible tags, folders for emails by looking through the common email. So they might have subscriptions, they might have emails from clients, they might have emails from customers, so on and so forth. So you want to look at that list of emails that they usually get from day to day and start creating what would be possible tags that I can put this so that's easy for you to file them later. and then start creating filters in the if this then that system. So what that means is if this email is coming from this domain, for example, we know that they're a supplier. If this email has an unsubscribe button, that means that this is a newsletter. If this email, so on and so forth, there's so many examples of that, but you want to start again observing what emails your client gets. Different clients will have different things, but it's important to then start noticing the patterns that come up. So for example, common filters is what are the emails usually that are urgent and important? What are the emails that are important but not urgent? They need to look at it, but not right away. What are client emails? What are newsletters or subscriptions? So then you can start then cleaning through and doing this daily. So you're always filtering. If you're using, of course, tools like Gmail or Outlook, you can create auto filters that then automatically put a label on it. So you don't actually have to do a lot of work. You just have to double check it. And then you can start going through and cleaning this daily. You can start creating templates for responses to common emails. So if you get a common question over and over again, probably time to create a template for it and to add tasks from emails into your task tracker. So if you see an email on your client's inbox that basically has a to-do afterwards, make sure you either add it to their task tracker or yours to be able to see, hey, were you actually able to do the task that was in the email? And of course, try to always end your day with a clean inbox, at least as clean as you can. So what this means is that there's nothing anymore for you to respond to. There's nothing anymore for you to do, but then it might be that your client is the only person who can respond to it. So you can leave it in the inbox. That way you're not overwhelming yourself the next day with a bunch of emails that you and your client might have to respond to. You're always starting the next day on a clean slate. You're not stressing out future self. So what are the beyond basics when it comes to email management? So a couple of best practices. One is use clear and concise subject lines to help recipients quickly understand the purpose of the email. So what this means is when you're sending an email, make sure that the subject line coincides to what it is that you're asking them for. So it's very, very clear what it is. Next is prioritize urgent emails and try to respond to them promptly and quickly. And then use folders or labels to organize emails by topic or priority. Unsubscribe from unnecessary mailing lists to reduce clutter in the inbox. So if you notice that your client always gets this kind of email and they delete it anyway, they don't even read it, probably time to just unsubscribe so it doesn't fill up the inbox every single day. And schedule dedicated time to check and respond to emails, rather than allowing them to interrupt other tasks throughout the day. So as a really good example, I usually tell our virtual assistants, try to only check your emails basically on the start of your day, middle of your day before you take the lunch, and also at the end of the day. So you're not constantly just checking the email. So how then to use ChatGPT as a superpower when you are doing email management? So there's two ways. You can use it to create filters. You can also use it for creating templates. And you can also use it to reply to emails. And I'm going to walk you guys through how to do that. So if you remember the prompt that we had earlier, I'm just hitting enter on that. So it says, I'm your trusty virtual assistant ready to tackle your email and calendar chaos. Let's dive in and conquer the digital mayhem together. Because again, I asked it to be short and witty with its answers. So on the first part is going ahead and creating the filters and the tags. So the prompt I put on here is, can you create a process for me on how I can manage my client's email? And then you list out the kind of emails that they usually get. As well as podcasts and speaking requests, include helpful labels I can use and how often I should check my email. So label of, create labels and folders for the different email categories. So clients, EAs, newsletters, speaking gigs, podcasts. Priority peaks, start by scanning your inbox for high priority emails from clients and urgent matters. So it is answering me, and I haven't seen it in this way. I think this is the first time I actually make it witty. So it's being very fun right now. Of course, you can ask it, like, hey, can you be more professional? It will do that. Label lasso, apply relevant labels to each emails. I love this actually. And then tame the title wave, and then filter fun. And then remember, adapt this process to you suit your preferences, work style, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually pretty cool the way that it wrote it out. However, if you guys wanted to ask, can you sound more professional? It'll be just very then straightforward to what the answer is. So that's kind of it's just like this is kind of like what a bot sounds like. However, let's say we didn't want it to change, so you can just go ahead and edit this. So then the next thing is creating templates. So I'll just paste this on here. So then it edits. So then it forgets that I sent that last one. So here's a template to respond to a reporter requesting an interview with your client. So this is now a email template that you can use moving forward for the common types of emails that you get anyway. Moving forward using ChatGPT. And of course, the other one is responding to emails. So I'm going to copy this one. So I'll ask it to, can you write up a response to this email? I would love to move forward and schedule a call ASAP. So I just pasted basically a copy of an email that someone probably or your client probably will receive. So it says, thank you so much for reaching out regarding my content about AI, blah, 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 blah. So it gives you that response. So now the thing that I always recommend is have a thread for each kind of tasks that you have. I call it Task GPT. So then it's easy for you anytime that you want to have a response to an email, you have a thread that you can respond to. So that's kind of the beauty and the amazing thing of it is, if it were me, like starting from scratch, I wouldn't put in even the labels for it. I would just put in the email. So I have one place that I know I can get responses from using ChatGPT. And I think I can walk you guys through later on how to train ChatGPT to write as you or as your client. I'll walk you guys through that process, but at least now, like using this ChatGPT, I have a way that I can create emails, create templates just by using this one ChatGPT. So next is we've gone through on email management. We'll now go through calendar management. So on calendar management, basically quick descriptions is just, it is managing the calendar to ensure that your client's schedule is well organized and appointments are scheduled in a timely manner. So it's just making sure that nothing is conflicting. It's not too overwhelming of a day. It's based on their preferences of how they want their day to look like. And there will be times where you'll be sending out calendar invites as well, and canceling emails, moving them around, so on and so forth. So what is the process for this? So we start with reviewing your client's existing schedule and categorizing them. Start looking at like, oh, they have this recurring call every Monday. They have, sales calls. They have check-in calls with different employees. They're able to have monthly maybe check-ins with these people. So you're trying to just familiarize yourself first of what their calendar looks like and what it is that their day-to-day looks like. Again, what are recurring meetings, one-off meetings, and what are the habits and routines? So for example, for my calendar, I actually have there when I work out, when I want to make sure that I eat, when I want to take a break, just so I can have a more balanced, because if I don't, then I'll just work for 12 hours straight. So it is a good way for me to find balance myself as an entrepreneur. So you want to start looking at what your client's calendar looks like in that way. And start creating templates for common calendar events. So for example, like I said earlier, they might have recurring check-ins with the team. They might have monthly things. So start noticing what the agenda usually is for that. So then you have a template that you can use anytime that pops up again. So let's say, for example, for the monthly check-ins, once they have a new employee, you might be sending them a new calendar invite. So you just have the one calendar description that you can now easily copy and paste. Try to check their calendar daily for conflict, because sometimes they might be sent like a random invite that they might have not approved, or things move around or shift around that things need to be changed. So doing that makes it a little bit easier. Give potential attendees possible times for events. So when you're trying to schedule for multiple other people, you could use, of course, tools like Calendly and Equity, but it might be that you're trying to schedule with 2, 4 or 5 people. So giving them like, hey, my client is available on Monday this time, Tuesday this time, what is the best time for you? So then you're able to give them the choice. So again, looking in their time zone, check what times the client is available. And then when you're scheduling meetings, go ahead and make sure you double check the meeting attendance, create that agenda, triple check the time and the date. I have made this mistake myself when I was doing my own calendar. I used to make sure to triple check the time and date. So how do we make this more than basic? How do we do beyond basics for calendar management? So best practices is schedule regular check-ins to review and update the calendar to ensure accuracy. Use calendar invites to share event details. So again, the agenda, and reduce the risk of miscommunication. That way it's clear for everyone involved to know what this is essentially. Set events for upcoming appointments to avoid missed or late events. Block off time for important tasks to avoid scheduling conflicts. So if, let's say, your client is working on a very particular project, making sure that you actually block off time on their calendar so they're not distracted by other things. And how do you use it with ChatGPT as your superpower? So there's different ways. So of course, there's creating calendar templates, there's creating that calendar agenda, and then for scheduling invites. So again, it is best practice to have a new chat for different tasks that you want ChatGPT to do. So we can change this because you can edit the names. So this is your email writer. Now we're going to create your calendar writer. So I'm going to edit this. We'd like your assistance in calendar management. And then, are you ready? So hitting enter on that. So right off the bat, used an emoji. So on the different examples that I gave is going ahead and creating calendar invite descriptions. So pasting on here, can you create a calendar invite description template for onboarding clients? So I will change calendar invite description template for onboarding clients. That will go into the calendar description. So making just, again, be as specific as possible when you're asking ChatGPT certain things. So then it will create, this is now something you can easily copy paste into that description part of a calendar. Again, makes it super duper easy to be able to do it. Can you create the agenda for onboarding clients? So we'll do the same thing. We're just changing the word to agenda. So right off the bat, it can create your agenda. So if you're really like tight for ideas of like, what should the agenda look like? What does it mean? Of course, again, please make sure that you double, triple check this before you send it out, before you give it to other people. Just because you never know if it doesn't actually match your client's processes. So make sure that you match for both. Same thing for rescheduling invites. It's just, can you create an email rescheduling previous dates to proposed dates? So basically that's different prompts that you guys can use for ChatGPT for the calendar management. So next is we have file creation and management. Again, this is one of the basics to be expected. Usually when clients come to you and they hire you, they have a ton of files everywhere that they have not organized because their business is growing and moving. So they haven't been able to do anything on it at all. So what it is creating and managing files. It is a crucial responsibility for virtual assistants, as it helps ensure the important documents information are well organized and easily accessible. So if your client produces so many files, if they create like contracts, they create let's say your client is a writer themselves, so they create a lot of their drafts, so on and so forth. It is important that you're able to start organizing it so it's easy for them to go back on. So what that process looks like is reviewing your your client's existing file. It's creating the templates for the common type of files. Again, if they're writer, the content creator, so on and so forth, creating what that could look like for them. To check the client's filing system, right? And rename basically new files as well. Check for file conflicts. They might have a contract version number 1, version number 2, version number 3. So making sure that it is up to date. Organizing and storing files in the right places, backing up and securing files as well. And then going ahead and creating a sharing system and process. So who is supposed to get certain access to certain files, certain folders, so on and so forth. And then making sure that you review and update the files regularly. If there's, again, different versions, what is the latest version, and making sure that that's the one that's available for everyone else. So on file creation and management, the beyond basics, best practices is use a consistent file naming convention to make it easier to locate and organize files. Create a clear and concise folder structure to help organize files by project, department, or dates. Back up important files to prevent loss due to hardware failure or accidental deletion. Happens. regularly clean up or old or unused files to reduce clutter and improve performance. So basically what it is just making sure that moving forward, as you clean everything up, that it doesn't get messy again. So creating the processes of what that looks like is really important. So using ChatGPT as a superpower when it comes to file creation and management, you could do it in two ways. Oops, sorry. It's creating the folder system and then the naming system. So again, as much as possible, you can go ahead and create a different ChatGPT thread for this. So you chat, just copying the prompt I already have. So again, I would like your assistant in file creation management. Are you ready? You to sound like a professional CEO. So it does the very lengthy responses because it's acting as a CEO. Yeah, so we'll change that because I don't want the very lengthy responses. I need you to be short and straight to the point. That's just a cool little side thing that you can do for sure. Okay, so on file management, you can ask it to go ahead and create the filing system for you. So just going through. Actually, it's already creating that process for you. Organize folders, naming conventions, client-specific folders, so on and so forth. But then you can also ask it, can you create the filing system for Google Drive for my business where we have our company files, contracts with clients and assistants, or our YouTube and social media content? So then it will start creating what the filing system should be based on, again, the common content that you get anyway, or that your client has in their day-to-day in their business. So this is why it's important to start observing, start creating templates, start creating common files, so that it's easy for you to then ask ChatGPT how to make that easier. So next is creating standard operating procedures. So what it is, if you've never seen one before, it's basically just a way for you to create a process. So there's a uniform way on how to do certain tasks in a business. So it's essential for virtual assistants to ensure that they can work efficiently and effectively while maintaining consistency. That's kind of what standard operating procedures are for, is to create consistency across all tasks. So let's say that you are managing your client's email. And let's say they have a second virtual assistant. If you've created the SOP or standard operating procedure correctly on how to manage your client's email, and you gave it to this other virtual assistant, they should be able to do it the same way you do. It's basically what the point of it is that you as the virtual assistant can then easily give this to someone else without sacrificing a lot of your time, a lot of your effort, because you already have a way to effectively train them. So what the process is try to identify the tasks or processes that need an SOP. So again, through observing your client's business, so on and so forth, try to break the task or process down into its component parts, or the step-by-step process of this. I can start writing the draft of the SOP using a clear and concise language. Again, make it easy for yourself to train someone else. Make the words basically of the verbiage you're using very clear. And of course, revise the SOP based on feedback received. Test the SOP to ensure that it is clear and easy to follow. And publish the SOP in a central location where it can be easily accessed by all the relevant parties. And again, make sure to keep it up to date. If let's say that you have been doing the email management for a while, you've been doing it for 2 years, and you haven't updated it once, even though you've changed your processes and your systems, it's going to be very obvious for the next person that you train to do it that they're making mistakes because it's not up to date. So what is the beyond basics when it comes to creating SOP? So best practices is clearly define the purpose and objectives of the SOP. Why is this even part of the process? Basically, why is this a task? Use consistent format and structure to make it easier to read and understand. Involve relevant stakeholders in the creation and review process to ensure accuracy and buy-in. So getting in whoever else is going to be involved in that task. So let's say, again, on email management, just an example, make sure that you have your client buy-in. So what that means that they're involved in the process, so they want to keep doing this moving forward. Make sure that you update SOPs regularly to reflect changes in the processes or procedures, and use visuals and examples to make the SOP more engaging and easier to follow. So how do you use ChatGPT as a superpower when it comes to creating SOPs? So it's basically then you just create a prompt very, very easily for the SOP. So from here, it already said, this is your main folder. You create a folder for clients. You create a folder for contracts. You create a folder for contracts, for assistance, for YouTube, social media resources, so on and so forth. So it's already giving you the filing system that you can follow and that you can do. So again, starting a new chat, I'm going to ask it to be an expert. So I would like your assistance in creating clear and concise standard operating procedures. So it'll then break down how to create the standard operating procedure. So kind of almost the same thing that I walked through. So the introduction, the purpose, the scope, definitions, the procedures, examples, troubleshooting, so on and so forth. So it's walking us through that whole thing. So to be able to get ChatGPT to start creating your SOPs, you can just follow this very, very quick format. This is the same format that we have into XU. So can you create an SOP on how to organize and file business documents with this format? So introduction, what you need, steps, best practices. So then this is now your ChatGPT or Past GPT thread they can go over and over again and just use to create SOPs for your client. So it's not just on organizing and file business documents. You can use this for any kind of process that you want to document with your client. It's that super quick and easy. But again, please go ahead and actually double check what ChatGPT does, because it's going to give you the most generic SOP because it doesn't know your processes. Let's say your client has a preference. Let's say that the business has like certain security things that it has to keep in mind, so on and so forth. ChatGPT won't know that until you give it that context. So always keep that in mind. As ChatGPT has very easily given you the draft, you have to be the one to go ahead and double check and make sure that it actually makes sense for the person that you're creating this for. So again, we have introduction, what you need, the actual steps on how to do it, the best practices, so on and so forth. It actually says, please note that this is a general SOP. You may need to adapt it to fit the specific needs of your business. So that's perfectly even gives you that heads up. But now, again, you have a task GPT. Create the SOP on creating and uploading YouTube videos. Probably also knows almost every kind of process or task that there is. So it'll always say, yep, here you go. The only times that ChatGPT will probably say no to you if it really, really doesn't understand what it is you're asking for, or if it's above its own limits. So that is basically what the rest of this is. But then now, anytime you need it to create, you don't have to give it the template every single time. You just usually just do it once and it'll keep doing that over and over again. And the next couple of things that we'll focus on is client management. So when it comes to client management, it's basically just making sure that the clients of your employer, so we'll change the verbiage, it's not as confusing. The clients of your employer are well taken care of from start to finish. So what that actually looks like is learning the process of managing their clients from onboarding to delivery to offboarding. It is, again, depending on the client or customer, you will need to send updates on where their product or service is at. It's also managing the team or project from start to finish, ensuring to ask feedback from the client, and creating SOPs based on the processes. Again, this is why SOPs are important, on the process learned and improved. So again, it's basically just a process of making sure that for your employer, again, making sure that I'm using the right words for your employer, that they know where your current clients or customers are at. It's making sure that the client or the customer feels supported through the process. Let's say that your client is a real estate agent. So then it's you checking through the process from thought to buying it all the way through them getting their keys basically for their home or for their condo, that they're taken care of throughout that whole process. So best practices is make sure that you set clear expectations and communicate regularly with clients to build that trust and avoid misunderstanding. Use a customer relationship management tool or a CRM. Examples of this are like HubSpot. I know some people use even Asana to track client interactions, issues, and feedback. So anytime, let's say you're managing 15 clients for your client, it's easy to look at from a very outside point of view, like, oh, this is where all of the files are at. Prioritize customer satisfaction and take action to resolve issues or concerns promptly. and provide proactive and personalized service to build long-term client relationships. So just like how you guys hate it when you guys get very generic answers from a place you've bought from, and you love it when they add a little bit of personalization to the things that they do, the more that you want to keep going back to that client or customer. That's why you want to be that side of the customer service as well. And of course, try to always seek feedback from clients and use it to improve the processes and services that you do already have. So using it with ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT to go ahead and create a whole onboarding system, which is pretty freaking cool. We've actually upgraded our onboarding system into XU based on suggestions from ChatGPT. And you can also create it as a way to create the CRM system. Like, what are the things that will be needed for the type of business that your client has? Next is one that a lot of people ask me about when it comes to being a virtual assistant, which is lead generation. And there's a reason why lead generation is also one of the most delegated tasks. And it's mostly because it's pretty repetitive. Like most of the time, your client knows who you're going to target. Before I go into more of that, let me describe what lead generation is. So it is the process of identifying and cultivating potential customers for a business. As a virtual assistant, you may be responsible for generating leads for your client's business. So what leads are is these are people who are interested in working with your client. So a very perfect example for a lead is all of your leads. You guys saw maybe a Facebook ad, you saw a post from us, you saw my YouTube videos where I talk about this workshop all the time, and you became like, oh, I want to do that. I want to buy in to what she is telling us to do. So you guys are all leads. You're interested. You were my leads because now you're here. You were interested in seeing what I do, what I'm about. So that is what lead generation is for me. I did this workshop. I promoted this workshop to generate leads, you guys, to come into and participate in this workshop. So that is a perfect example, actually, what it is. So for us, for me as an employer, this is going to be one of the tasks that are sometimes, or most of the time, the most repetitive. It's you doing reach out, it's you creating posts like social media to be able to get people interested in doing what it is that, what the business or service is about. So the process for it is identify the target audience for the business. Who is your client wanting to work for or work with? Start researching potential leads using online directories, social media, and other sources. So going to LinkedIn, researching who could be potential leads as an example. Start collecting relevant information about each lead. Reach out to leads through email, phone, or other communication channels. And then follow up with leads to ensure that they are still interested in the business's products or services, and provide regular reports on lead generation activities and outcomes to the client. So as you're going through this more repetitive task, that's something that for you, it's like, oh, every time someone books a call, that means that you're a win. That means you've succeeded. So that is essentially what lead generation is you're, again, generating people who would be interested in your client's business. So what is the beyond basics when it comes to lead generation? So best practices is clearly define the target audience and develop a customer persona to guide lead generation efforts. Again, you can do this very clearly and fast with ChatGPT, of basically just asking ChatGPT, hey, can you create a clear customer avatar for me of who I'm going to be working with? X, Y, and Z, you can give them the business information. That's also why we have the WOW method, so that it's easier for ChatGPT to do just that. Use multiple channels such as social media, email, events, just like this one, to reach and engage potential leads. Provide value through educational content, webinars, or free trials to build trust and credibility. And just like this one. Use analytics to measure the effectiveness of lead generation efforts and adjust as needed. So let's say no one signed up for these workshops every single month. That would tell me I probably should stop doing these webinars. But because you guys keep showing up, you guys do keep signing up. Some people even signing up for like every single month. I've seen people who've done that, which is, I'm super grateful. But then it tells me like, hey, this works. People want this. People need this. This is one of the ways I can bring and give value. And of course, continuously nurture leads through targeted messaging and personalized follow-up. So using ChatGPT as a superpower for it, you can use it to create reach out templates and also creating a follow-up system. So this one's actually pretty cool enough that I can go through and use it in ChatGPT for creating new chat. Basically the ask is I would like your assistance in our assistance, and actually I'll add and expertise in creating our sales systems. So are you ready? So again, you can use it to create reach out templates and then creating the follow-up system. So I'm going to do this. Can you create templates on how we can reach out to potential clients as well as a follow-up process? Give a timeline. So what this does is it will now break down, like when you first send the email, send this. If you haven't heard from them, and in like 3 days or 5 days, depending on what this ChatGPT will say, you send them this email, so on and so forth. It will create that whole sequence from you from start to beginning, from beginning to end, sorry. So then you have a good way. So right, again, follow up process and timeline, day 1, initial outreach, day 5, follow-up email, and so on and so forth. So again, it's pretty cool. And you can ask it for the emails that you can send. You can ask like write the email for day 10, and it will write that email for you based on, of course, what it's actually said. So that's kind of the quick and easy way that you can use ChatGPT. Next is customer support, especially for those who are currently doing this. This is usually where you are providing timely and helpful assistance to customers of your employer who have questions or concerns about the product and service. Again, this is pretty straightforward, where you learn the common customer support inquiries that the business receives, what are common questions, emails, chats that usually is sent, setting up communication channels for customer support, such as email, chat, or phone. So respond promptly and professionally to customer inquiries, use templates or scripts to efficiently address common customer inquiries, and then escalate complex inquiries as well to appropriate team members or managers, and of course, following up. So this is just essentially as they come in, as like your employers, clients, or customers come in, making sure that they feel supported. So what is the beyond basics of customer support? It's basically on best practices, responding to inquiries promptly and professionally to provide excellent customer service. It is using consistent tone and language for the brand recognition, providing self-service options like creating FAQs or knowledge bases for the common ones that come in anyway. It's also continuously monitoring and measuring the customer satisfaction to identify areas for improvement, and then using customer feedback to make improvements to products and services to improve the customer experience. So anytime they say, hey, I can't find this one button, it's probably a feedback to make that button a little bit more obvious, so on and so forth. So using ChatGPT for it as a superpower. So there's 2 quick ways. Of course, building templates for common inquiries and using it as a technical support response. So if there's something that's a little bit too technical, like looking at your manual, some people might not understand it. So then you can ask ChatGPT, just like earlier, to break it down, make it super simple as you respond to that email. Next is the one that I know a lot of people are always curious about how it works, which is social media management. So it's basically the process of creating, although not always, some clients prefer creating their own content, scheduling and publishing content on social media platforms to engage with customers and promote a business's product or services. So when it comes to lead generation, social media is one of the more popular ones, because instead of going out and doing outreach, you're kind of just getting people to come in. So what that process looks like is you need to understand the business's goals and target audience. Again, who are they talking to? Identify the social media platforms that the business should use. Develop a social media content strategy and plan. Create and curate engaging social media content. Schedule and publish that. Monitor them. Respond promptly if there's any inquiries through social media. And of course, track social media metrics such as followers, engagement, and conversions. And honestly, your most important number is your conversions. If you create 10 social media posts on Twitter, but you don't get, let's say you get like 100 retweets, blah, 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 but none of them actually become a client, but you do one post on LinkedIn and it has like 2 likes, but then one of those people who liked become a customer, that's your target audience. That's where you should probably be posting. So what is the beyond basics when it comes to social media management? Best practices is develop a content calendar, which I'll show you how to do it with ChatGPT in a little bit. So you can create consistent posting and schedule them in advance. Engage with followers by responding to comments. Again, you can use ChatGPT to create the response to comments and messages as well. Monitor social media metrics. Again, your most important number is the conversion of how many people of those actually become a paying customer or client. Use social listening tools to monitor brand mentions, making sure that someone tags you in things, that you respond to it in some way, and continuously test and experiment in different types of content. There's images, videos, or polls to optimize engagement. Using ChatGPT as a superpower when it comes to social media management. So there's two main ways. So it's creating a content calendar and then actually creating the content that you need. So flipping back, clicking on new chats, going ahead and copy and pasting from the prompt we already have. So I put there, I would like your assistance in content creation and social media management. Are you ready? We'll just keep it super straightforward and simple. So I can ask it, can you create the weekly content calendar for me, and what would be the best platform for us to post content in? Usually it will ask me, like, can you provide me more details, the type of content you're looking to create, so on and so forth. We can provide it to ChatGPT later. We can say, we create weekly videos for YouTube that gets repurposed to other platforms as short videos or blog posts. So again, giving ChatGPT the best context that you can give it. So then it's like Monday, it's posting the video. On social media, post a teaser clip. On Tuesday, do the blog post, making sure it's shared on social media to Twitter and LinkedIn. So again, it makes it super freaking easy for you to just create a content calendar from scratch. Again, please double check this, make sure that it makes sense for your client's business. But then that just makes it super duper easy for you to create a content calendar right off the bat from scratch. So the second one is starting to create content. So this is how I've trained ChatGPT on how to write content like me. So what I would do, or I have done, is I will post a sample of the way that I usually write. So I'll put in, here's a sample of how I write my social media posts. I'll give it that. And then instead of what do you think of my content, copy this writing style and create a LinkedIn post on how cool the Beyond Basics workshop for VAs was last June 9, 2023. So then that's how you train ChatGPT to write as you. So if you are going to train it in your client's voice, it's the same thing. Just say that copy and learn this writing style. So now anytime that I ask it, like, hey, can you create in my writing style this kind of post, it will create that. So this becomes, if you didn't use it just now to create a content calendar, this becomes your social media post writer. And I do have one for my own posts for TikTok, Twitter, everywhere else. I have one for each. So that's how cool, like, quick and easy it is to train ChatGPT to write as you. Next couple ones, and I believe we're down to the last two. So invoice management is basically involves creating, sending, and tracking invoices for the products or services that a business offers. So if you guys have no idea what an invoice is, it's basically kind of it's the before receipt. So whenever you're at the restaurant and you ask for the bill, that's basically an invoice. You've given your service, you've given your product, and now you're asking them like, hey, this is how much it was, pay me this much. That's what an invoice is. So on the process is understand the client's invoicing needs, including payment terms and methods, create and send invoices to customers promptly and accurately. Again, making sure when you're at a restaurant, you always double check what is in the bill. So for you, as a person sending it out, you have to double check it. Follow up with customers who have not paid their invoices on time, monitor payment receipts, and update the invoicing system accordingly. Send payment reminders and follow-up communications to customers with overdue invoices, and track invoicing and payment metrics such as revenue and accounts receivable. Now, you might not have to do all of this. As again, a really good example for my own amazing assistant. She doesn't create the invoice, but she reminds our bookkeeper to create them and send them out. For her, she then just follows up like, hey, have they paid yet? Have they done this? So then I can send the follow-up email, or she manages like if they have any questions on the invoice, so on and so forth. So it makes my life a little bit easier because I don't have to be the one to actually do it. Next, on beyond basics for the invoice management, how do you do this beyond just the basics of it? So best practices is, of course, make sure that it is sent promptly after the work is completed or products are delivered to make sure it's not forgotten. Ensure that invoice details are accurate and clear. Keep detailed records of all the invoices. Follow up on outstanding payments. Again, if your client doesn't get paid, you don't get paid. So make sure that they do get paid. And offer multiple payment options for clients, again, depending on your employer or what that looks like for them. So using ChatGPT as a superpower for this. So there's different ways. So there's, of course, creating the invoice of what information do I need from a client in order to create an invoice. And also when it comes to creating that follow-up sequence, you can ask ChatGPT to do the same. Now you can ask it also to, if your client doesn't have a template yet on their invoice, you can ask it to create the same as well. Now, lastly, on payroll management. So what it is, it's of course calculating processes and processing and distributing employee payments, including salaries, wages, and taxes. So depending again on the employer that you have, they might ask you to do it for other freelancers that they may be working with, other employers. We have multiple virtual assistants in 2XU who do this for their client. So it really depends. Some who've never experienced it at all, but depends on the client's business. So what that process looks like is going ahead and understanding the client's payroll needs, including payment schedules and methods. How often do they get paid? How do they get paid? Make sure that you collect and verify employees' payroll information, their bank accounts, calculate employee payments accurately, process employee payments using a payroll software if there is one, distribute employee payments to designated accounts or through other payment methods, and handle employee payroll inquiries and issues promptly and professionally. And of course, maintain accurate and up-to-date payroll records and reports. So again, imagine that you're the one receiving your payroll. You want to make sure that it actually is done right. So as the payroll manager, you also have to do the same. So the beyond basics of payroll management, so best practices is, of course, make sure that you process their payroll on time, ensure that all the details, especially the wages and taxes, are accurate, keep detailed records of all the payroll transactions, ensure compliance with relevant laws and regulations, and communicate clearly with employees about payroll policies and procedures. So just making sure that they're aware of why their pay might be less, so on and so forth. So how to use it with ChatGPT? You can use it to create the whole payroll process if your client doesn't have one already, or you can use it to create emails to sending out pay slips. So one of the ways you can do this is you can give the ChatGPT like, hey, this is the usual email that we use for sending to employees. Can you generate one for, and you can put like 5-10 names on it. And then it will just customize each email to that person. You can even add their pay. So you're just customizing and asking ChatGPT to create personalized emails that you can then now send out to employees that your client has.